sisters, this is Miss Audrey Peterman of Earthwise Productions. You will be purchasing her and her husband Frank Peterman's book on Saturday at the library. She'll be autographing them and taking lots of photographs. This your girl no afraid of camera, tal. Okay? And him from back a yard, just like we brought him in, we a steady body live here in Port Lauderdale for a long time, working in the environmental movement. So we go and turn him over to she.
Thank you.
That's on the side.
Thank you so much, Queen. Hello, everyone. I know you're all looking forward to a wonderful time today. And since you're kind of like in my adopted hometown, I can guarantee that will be so. Now, the key thing that I want to tell you about this is my husband Frank, who's the most amazing man in the world, grew up down the street in a little city called Dania. And he often tells me that when he was growing up here in the 30s and 40s, all of this development that you see here was not here. It was still the Everglades swamp. Everything west of 441 was Everglades. So just imagine, in less than half of a century, we gobbled up more than I think almost half of the Everglades ecosystem with all of this development that you see around here. And while it is vitally important, of course, for us to have places to live, there is now some question as to what the limits of development should be. As, for example, one of the biggest restoration projects in the world is the restoration of the Florida Everglades that has been on the drawing board since 1995 is when we first heard about it. Now, just to switch back a little, Frank also tells me that when he was growing up here, he actually played with Seminole Indians. He played baseball with Seminole Indians who lived right down the street across from him. Now they have been, I guess, repatriated further west and deeper into the Everglades. Yes. And it is my understanding that a lot of the black people who originally came to this area came from the Bahamas and worked on Henry Flagler's railroad, which came from Jacksonville, I think it was, and goes all the way down to Key West. Interestingly enough, as happens in urban areas around the country, those people were marshaled into a corridor between the railroad tracks. So the entire historical legacy of black people in this area is between the FEC, Florida East Coast Railroad, and another railroad track. So Frank says when he was growing up here, a black person who was caught on the east side of Fort Lauderdale over near the beach after sundown, literally wrist, life, and limb could be beaten and harassed and mutilated by the law, by the police. So there was nobody to turn to for redress. And yet these people made such a tremendous contribution to this area. I know that there are a couple of books in the library that we're going to be at tomorrow which talks about the contributions of African Americans in this area, and I'm less than familiar with everything, but I would say that as is typical of indigenous or populations that are brought into an area to work the area, their legacy can be seen in almost every building that exceeds 50 years in this area. I want to jump back to the Everglades restoration for a moment, because when we first heard about the project to restore the Everglades in 1995, it was described as the largest ecosystem restoration ever to be undertaken in human history. It was compared to something with the complexity of building a space station. And yet it was posited that in order for the whole South Florida area to thrive and to have a water supply, we needed to restore the Everglades, and we needed to get all communities involved. And since, as many people know, African Americans and Latinos have not typically been seen at the forefront of environmental restoration projects, my husband and I, and people like Al Calloway and Curtis, felt that it was of vital importance to let the people know about the restoration, and then also to figure out where they fit in it, how they could benefit from the economic and other opportunities that would come from that, instead of, as the plan appeared on the drawing board, you know, the likelihood was that all these people that I mentioned were between the railroad tracks were going to be displaced because of the new urban movement as they ended development
I just wanted you to point out that we're passing that sign for Plantation, Florida.
Oh yeah, what's about the sign for Plantation, Florida?
No, just tell them there's a whole city called Plantation.
There's a whole city called Plantation. Yes. But I want to just wind up by saying the Everglades Restoration Project is still on the drawing board. I think it was recently funded in the Water Resources Development Act of 2010. The fact is that it jumped from a $5 million restoration to now a $17 million restoration. Bigger than $17 million? 17 billion, I'm so sorry, 17 billion. So the bottom line is, there should be plenty of opportunity for all Americans to participate in that and to restore this natural treasure and at the same time secure our environment and our water supply. But unfortunately, as many things play out in America, that is not the case. One segment of the community tends to be enriching at the expense of another segment which tends to be impoverished. But of course, since many of us know the information now, it's up to us to take a hold of that and make sure that that does not happen. So I've talked enough, but this is a dynamic area and you're only going to learn more and love it more as we go along today. Thank you, Queen, for the opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. She got indigo and gold earrings in here already. She got the right colors on for today. But just so that you get a real understanding of why we choose the places that we choose. And this is our first time, other than going into a place connected directly through the diaspora, going into the Bahamas, that we take this festival into a city in the U.S. that isn't known for being a Gullah Geechee Nation city. And so it was critical because we know the stories of our people that are here. Just like Sister Audrey is mentioning about how many people came from the Bahamas here to work. Many of them who came from the Bahamas here to work are considered black Seminoles in the Bahamas. And that means they were Gullah Geechees to begin with. So they came full circle by actually coming back here. The only difference was now to work on a railroad, which no one had ever done before at that period of time. And so we are here coming full circle to raise the awareness so that you do see all of our story and everything that you look at in the faces of others, as well as in this concrete, in these stones, in these bricks that you see all around us. Because more often not, we bypass these things on a daily basis and never even stop to think about whose hands put it there. You see, whose mind did the drawing? Who did God give the vision to say this is the place to do this? And so imagine the Pullman porters that got jobs after those tracks had been laid by our people. All right? And so when we talk about the Gullah Geechee Nation International Music and Movement Festival, we know we are riding on the tracks that our ancestors laid for us to be on, literally and figuratively, and definitely spiritually. And so throughout the day, just as we did yesterday, you know, meet, greet, chat, share names, exchange information, because that is the way our people have been able to know how to return home, or return to the brush over where people are there, because they know your people, you know what I'm saying? So even this morning, we didn't hardly turn in the lot, and I saw Ricky get up. I said, you know, he don't see we yet, don't see we, you know, and we always say, blood no blood. And so that's that connection point, because we draw together. So one more time, we so glad if I'm gonna children the day of the day with we and things like that, and it just group just a grind, going grow.